Lisa walked briskly through the revolving doors of her office building, the early morning sun casting a warm glow over the bustling city streets. It was a Monday, and she felt the familiar knot in her stomach as she made her way to her desk. Today was the big project kickoff meeting, a chance for the whole team to share ideas and brainstorm. But instead of excitement, she felt a creeping sense of dread. She placed her coffee mug on her desk, took a deep breath, and tried to reassure herself. Today's the day, Lisa. You'll understand more this time. She hoped her English practice was finally paying off. After months of studying grammar and vocabulary in her spare time, she still struggled to follow her colleagues' conversations. Words seemed to fly past her, and by the time she tried to translate one sentence in her head, 3 more would slip by. As she entered the conference room, her eyes scanned the group. Her manager, a fast-talking man named Ben, was already at the whiteboard, scrolling out bullet points in rapid English. Her colleagues were chatting excitedly, throwing around ideas and sharing quick banter. Lisa sank into her seat, clutching her notepad, knowing the meeting would be a whirlwind. Ben started speaking, his words pouring out in a steady stream. "All right, everyone, let's jump right in. We need fresh angles for this campaign, something dynamic, something that'll really capture attention." Lisa's mind raced as she tried to make sense of the flurry of words. Angles, campaign, capture. She grasped at familiar words, piecing them together, but as soon as she thought she understood, the conversation shifted. Ideas were tossed back and forth like a fast-paced game of ping-pong, and she found herself unable to keep up. Her pen hovered over the paper, unable to capture even a single clear note. "Lisa, what are your thoughts on this?" Ben's voice jolted her out of her concentration, and she looked up in a panic. "Oh, she stammered, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. "I think, maybe, we should focus on, she trailed off, knowing she hadn't understood enough to contribute. Ben gave her a polite nod and moved on, but she could see the raised eyebrows around the table. After the meeting, Lisa slipped out quietly and made her way to the break room, where she could finally let out a frustrated sigh. She felt like an outsider, stuck on the edges of conversations she couldn't fully participate in. She tried hard, she really did, but every time she felt a glimmer of progress, something would knock her back down. She had come all the way to this city with big dreams, yet here she was, struggling to follow simple office chatter. As she stared at her coffee cup, deep in thought, she didn't notice Sarah entering the break room. Sarah, a friendly and energetic colleague, had noticed Lisa's discomfort during the meeting. "Hey Lisa," Sarah's voice broke the silence. "You seemed a bit lost back there. Are you okay?" Lisa looked up, momentarily embarrassed but grateful for Sarah's concern. "Yeah, I just couldn't keep up," she admitted. "I'm studying English, but sometimes it feels like I'm getting nowhere. Everyone talks so fast. I want to be part of the team, but it's just hard." Sarah smiled knowingly. "I've been there too. Trust me, you're not alone. English is tricky, especially when people start speaking naturally. But, you know, there's a way to make it easier." Lisa looked at her with curiosity. "Really? I mean, I'm studying vocabulary and grammar, but..." Sarah shook her head. "It's not just about the words on the page. You need to train your ear. Think of it like learning a song. You don't just memorize the lyrics. You listen to the rhythm, the way the singer's voice flows. Language is kind of like that. You need to hear it, a lot, and really get used to the sounds." Lisa felt a flicker of hope. "So, you're saying I should just listen more?" "Exactly," Sarah replied. "Start small. Pick something you enjoy, a podcast, a show, even music. Don't worry if you don't understand everything. Just listen. Your ear will start to recognize patterns and common phrases. Over time, your brain will do a lot of the work for you." Intrigued, Lisa nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll give it a try." "Good." Sarah grinned, patting Lisa on the shoulder. "And don't be discouraged by setbacks. Even if you miss a few words or a whole sentence, it's all part of the process." Part 2. Lisa's first attempts at listening practice. With Sarah's advice fresh in her mind, Lisa decided to start her noob ear training routine that very evening. She would try it every day for a week, just to see if it made a difference. As she settled into her apartment that night, she pulled up her favorite streaming app and searched for an English TV show. She chose a light-hearted sitcom she'd heard people talk about in the office. Something funny but not too complicated. As the first episode began, she felt her heart race with excitement. This would be the start of her journey to finally understand English conversations. The actors on the screen laughed, talked, and joked with each other. Lisa leaned in, trying her best to focus on every word. But as the dialogue sped up, her initial excitement began to fade. The characters seemed to be speaking in a blur, and she struggled to catch anything beyond simple greetings. She clicked on the subtitle option, allowing the English captions to appear at the bottom of the screen. It helped a little, but her brain was working overtime to match the sounds with the words. It was like watching two conversations at once, one in audio and one in text, and her head began to spin. Halfway through the episode, Lisa paused, feeling exhausted. "This is harder than I thought," she muttered. But she remembered Sarah's encouragement. Don't give up just because you don't understand everything right away. The next morning, Lisa woke up feeling a mix of anticipation and nervousness. She grabbed her headphones and queued up a popular English podcast on her phone, ready to take Sarah's advice seriously. The podcast host's voice was warm and friendly, and she could pick out a few words here and there. Morning, plans, funny story. But the rest blended together, like a musical language she only half understood. As she rode the bus to work, she pressed herself to stay focused, trying to let the sounds wash over her. Every now and then, she caught a phrase that made her smile. The hosts laughed, sharing stories that she only partially grasped, but she found herself smiling along, feeling as though she was part of a private club. She didn't need to understand everything just yet. Just being able to pick out these snippets was a small victory. Later that evening, after a long day at work, Lisa decided to watch another episode of the sitcom she'd started the night before. This time, instead of stressing over every word, she let herself enjoy the show as if she were listening to background music. She noticed her mind relax, and to her surprise, she caught on to phrases and expressions that she hadn't noticed before. She even found herself laughing at a joke, a small, silly joke about coffee, but it was the first time she understood the humor without needing to pause and analyze. Yet, just as she was starting to feel more comfortable, Lisa hit her first big setback. A few days later, Lisa was feeling more confident in her listening routine. Each morning on the bus, she'd listen to her podcast, and each evening, she'd unwind with her sitcom. She felt like she was making progress, albeit slowly. Her mind was beginning to recognize certain expressions. Phrases like, "I mean," "you know," and "at the end of the day" had started to sound familiar, almost like friendly landmarks in the sea of English sounds. But on Friday, her progress was put to the test. As she was helping out in the front office, a customer walked in and began speaking quickly, with a thick accent that Lisa wasn't used to. Her mind raced as she tried to make sense of what he was saying, but her confidence shattered as she struggled to pick out even a single clear phrase. Her heart pounded, and she felt the familiar wave of frustration wash over her. She managed to respond politely, smiling and nodding as best as she could, but as soon as the customer left, she felt defeated. All her hard work felt like it had been for nothing. Had she really made any progress at all? That evening, she considered giving up on the listening practice altogether. Just then, her phone buzzed with a message. It was Sarah, asking if she'd like to join her for coffee over the weekend. Grateful for a friendly ear, Lisa agreed. The next afternoon, they met at a cozy cafe around the corner. Sarah greeted her with a warm smile. "How's the listening practice going?" Lisa sighed. "Honestly, I thought I was doing okay. But yesterday, I couldn't even understand a customer who spoke a little faster. It's like I'm back to square one." Sarah chuckled, understanding. "Lisa, progress isn't a straight line. You're going to have days like that. But the thing is, you're already doing great by sticking with it. Listening is a skill, like any other. Think of it like going to the gym. You don't build muscle in a day. You build it over time, with small steps." Lisa sipped her coffee thoughtfully. I hadn't thought of it like that. I guess I was expecting to understand everything right away. Sarah nodded. Maybe try mixing things up. Listen to different accents, different styles. There's a whole world of English out there, and the more variety you expose yourself to, the more your ear will adjust. And don't be afraid of missing words. Just let your mind take in what it can. Buoyed by Sarah's encouragement, Lisa felt ready to tackle her ear training journey with renewed determination. Over the next few weeks, Lisa began to broaden her listening horizons. She experimented with British shows, American podcasts, and even a few English songs recommended by Sarah. Each piece of content presented its own unique challenge, but Lisa found herself rising to meet them. She no longer felt as frustrated when she didn't understand every word. Instead, she focused on picking out the familiar phrases and getting a feel for the rhythm of the language. One morning, she had a breakthrough. At the weekly team meeting, Lisa sat quietly, as she usually did, while her colleagues discussed their upcoming project. But this time, something felt different. She could understand the flow of the conversation. She could anticipate where it was going and pick up on familiar expressions. Her ears caught phrases she'd practiced from her podcasts, like "let's circle back" and "moving forward." And for the first time, she wasn't lost. Then, Ben asked her a question. Normally, she would freeze, her mind racing to translate his words. But today, she understood him immediately. Taking a deep breath, she responded clearly, offering her thoughts on the project. She even managed to add a small joke about the last campaign, earning a few laughs from her colleagues. It felt like magic. She was finally part of the team, finally able to contribute without feeling lost. After the meeting, one of her colleagues, Tom, patted her on the shoulder. "Great input today, Lisa. Your English is getting really good." The words filled her with pride. She had done it. She had trained her ear to hear English, to follow the rhythm and the patterns. It wasn't perfect, but it was real progress. That night, as she watched her favorite sitcom, she noticed that she could follow along without subtitles. The characters' conversations felt natural, and she laughed freely at their jokes, feeling more connected to the language than ever before. Part 6. Resolution. The transformation. Months passed, and Lisa's confidence only continued to grow. Her listening practice had become a daily habit, one she genuinely looked forward to. She began exploring more complex content, business podcasts, interviews, even TED Talks, and each piece helped her ear become more attuned to the nuances of English. Lisa was no longer the quiet observer at the edges of conversations. She was engaged, asking questions, laughing at jokes, and sharing her own insights. Her colleagues had noticed the change, and she felt like she belonged in the team more than ever. One day, a new hire, a young man named Javier, joined their team. Javier, like Lisa months before, struggled with English, often looking lost and hesitant during meetings. Lisa recognized the look in his eyes. She had been there herself not long ago. After one meeting, she found him in the break room, staring into his coffee with a defeated expression. "Hey, Javier," she said gently, taking a seat next to him. "I know how tough it can be at first. I went through the same thing. But there's a way to make it easier." He looked up, surprised. "Really? It feels like I'll never catch up." She smiled, remembering Sarah's words. "It's all about training your ear. Just start by listening to something every day, even if you don't understand all of it. Your ear will start to recognize patterns and phrases. Trust me, you'll get there." As she shared her journey with him, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had come so far, and now she could help others on the same path. The story of Lisa's transformation is a reminder that anyone can learn to understand a new language with time, patience, and persistence. If you're working to improve your English, don't just focus on the words in textbooks. Train your ear by listening to English every day. Podcasts, shows, conversations, anything that brings the language to life. Let your ear do the work, and over time, you'll find yourself understanding more, feeling more confident, and finally joining in. Take that first step today. Start listening, let the sounds become familiar, and watch your progress grow. Just like Lisa, you can make your dream of fluency a reality.